biofortified beans, what it is, what it contains, what is its role in helping to improve nutrition. So guys, join us. It's not only for schools, but also what are the importances of iron in beans, zinc in beans that can help reducing the rates of malnutrition in the country. So kindly join us and we can, I think we can start.
Yeah, let's start, yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you. And like the bean, we are resilient. We're a resilient panel and an adaptive panel. And it's a tough time to be doing a panel discussion, but we will start because there are people that want to hear about beans. So my name is Charlie. I'm an associate partner for Dalberg based in Nairobi. And I'm joined by my colleagues Jane and Penina from Agra and Harvest Plus. And we're here today to talk about scaling biofortified beans. So to start us off, Jane, can you tell us first, can you introduce yourself and then tell us what are biofortified beans?
Okay, thank you very much, Charlie. So my name is Jenny Nida. I work with Angra. I'm based in Nairobi. I'm currently the head for seed research and seed systems development. And today I'm glad to talk about high iron beans. So first, let me start by saying that in Africa, we are short of even meeting our nutrition targets. As it stands right now, there is actually no country in Africa that has met its nutritional targets. So we are talking about measurements like micronutrient levels, anemia. These are some of the indicators, or even diabetes. This which we show, you know, that the continent is consuming a healthy diet. And so what does this mean? It means that obviously there is low access of these crops. And a lot of research has been done in different crops. As you know, that Africa is very diverse. And one of the main crops that is a key crop in Africa is beans. And although a lot of research has been done on beans, we know that several institutions have bred and released bean varieties. Actually, in the last 5 years, we have ejected more than 120 new varieties from different institutions, including the NAS, the 1CG, and any other programs that are driven by the private sector. But of those 120 varieties, there are only very few of them which we call biofortified. So when we talk about biofortified, we are talking about the nutrient concentration. These are bean varieties that are developed through breeding processes, mostly conventional breeding processes. When we talk about high iron, they are high in concentration of iron. You know, normally the beans that we have of those main ones which are released have less than 50 micrograms per gram, or parts per million, if we say so. But the new bean varieties, which we are calling biofortified beans, have more than 70, even 80% micrograms per gram. So what does this mean? Increasing quantities of iron also means that we are increasing the concentration of availability of the high iron. So basically that's the implication of what we mean by high iron beans.
Thank you, Jane. I'll be testing the audience after this on biofortified beans, so hopefully they were all listening to that description. So, Penina, can you tell me why then should we be getting excited about biofortified beans?
Thank you, Charlie. I think we need to be excited about fortified beans because they are coming to our tables to respond to a need of increased consumption of very important micronutrients. Micronutrients that we require, especially among children, to ensure proper growth and to ensure that we are able to do work and be able to meet our potential as human beings. So in the event that there is micronutrient deficiency of iron and zinc, then we are looking at reduced manpower for those children when they grow up to be adults. And at their stage when they're younger, it means they have poor performance in school. So no matter how much we are pumping into school fees, if the children are not yet ready to consume knowledge for the grades that they are in, then we are actually losing our money. So we are very excited that beans is a staple crop in most of the African countries. And therefore, the more we make it nutritious, the more we are actually getting our populations to be ready for the challenge of global challenge of productivity. So in addition to that, when it comes to the school feeding program, we know that beans contributes to more than 40% of the food that is consumed in our schools. And therefore, the more nutritious the food is, the better, especially for school feeding program. So Charlie, we are very excited to have the biofortified beans on the tables at home as well as in schools. Thank you.
That's great to hear. And we've even got someone now with a Beans is Now t-shirt, so the word is getting around, so that's good to see. Beans is how even, sorry. So, Dr. Jane, I know seeds is a specialist area of yours, and a lot of research has been done to increase yield and productivity, and yet we see farmers often recycling seeds, not using new variants. Why is that the case, and how is that impacting the yield and the potential scaling of the value chain?
Okay, yes. So when we look at, we have just mentioned that it's very, very important to have access, to the high iron bean varieties. And just as my colleague has articulated, actually, we know that 66 million children in Africa are actually feeding on beans. And if you expand it even to the population, it's even greater because beans are also eaten in households. However, the question is, so how do we ensure that, that the meals that are cooked, let's say in the schools or at home, actually do have that value of the high iron content? It all starts with the seed. Because if we do not control quality at that level, the seed is the primary, catalyst to high productivity, contributing 40% of the productivity of the total crop. But what we want the farmers and the children who are feeding on these beans to achieve is to be sure that they do have actually that right nutrient content. And so it needs to be controlled from the seed access. So this means that we need to have systems in place to make sure that when the beans are developed and released by the breeders, for example, here in Tanzania, we know that several bean varieties have been released from Celian, Celian 14, 15. We know the Tari beans. We go to Malawi, we have the Nua beans, Nua 45. We go to Kenya, we do have Nyota, Gaza. All these are bean varieties which have been bred and have been proved to have the high iron. So the first thing, if the farmer is going to actually plant that, is to make sure that they get the high quality seed. So the high quality seed control starts from the early generation seed, in the research station. And this seed, when it is transferred, to the multipliers, who are the seed companies, they need to go through the process of producing high quality seed, so that by the time the farmer is given that seed and they are planting, actually they are sure that, it has the quality control in place. And this is where the challenge comes in, because we know that our seed production chains are broken in different ways. For example, here in Tanzania, ANGRA has just completed an analysis using a tool we are calling the Seed System Assessment Tool, which assesses, what is broken in the areas of seed access to farmers, from breeding, from quality control, from farmer awareness, or even policy issues. And what we are finding out, and it's not just here in Tanzania, actually, it's across all our we have done this in 11 countries, is that there is actually huge gaps which exist in the matter in which quality control is assured through the seed production chain. So our regulatory systems are weak, our breeders don't have the resources, farmers are not aware. We know that like now for high nutrient content beans, farmers are not aware. Our policies are actually not working well. So this means that there are things that need to be done to ensure more better access. And so what is happening, if we don't have these quality control systems in place, it leads to low quality, counterfeit seed, low confidence in terms of farmers, and in general, farmers don't have confidence in this higher, so they cannot access. So to substitute that, what farmers are doing, most of them just, you find a lot of farmer exchange. You know, you buy from your farmer because you trust them more. In Tanzania, we have also other models like quality declared seed, which doesn't have to go through that rigorous certification, but that quality declared seed does not cover, you know, the real quality control, does not reach that level. So these are the challenges that we are fighting in, and these challenges need to be addressed. If they are not addressed, it means that our school children, our farmers, our population will not be able to access this value, which we want to improve their nutritional levels. So these are the actual challenges that we are talking about today, and we are glad that we are come up with some methods of intervening, you know, to make sure that these are addressed.
Thank you. And from what our research found is that often if the farmers do invest in the seed, then when they go to market, they're not getting the price that they were hoping for Biofortified, because the beans can get mixed by traders who don't necessarily see the additional value. So can you tell us, Penina, about any work that's being done to bring more structure to the value chain to ensure the farmer the right price?
Thank you for the question. One thing that we realize within the African continent is that beans tend to very much go through the informal sector to get to the consumers. And within this informal sector, quality is not of top priority. But in order for us to ensure that farmers are getting a good return from bean value chain, what we are incorporating is a formal market pathway, whereby, for example, we are linking farmer aggregators with suppliers that would send such kind of a commodity to schools. And when that happens, it means that the farmers are able to actually access better prices. In addition to that, we also work with the formal sector, such as the supermarkets, such as the processors, to ensure that the farmers are also getting better prices. And remember, much of this poor prices going to our farmers is because of the long value chain that some of the agricultural commodities tend to go through, because of the brokers, if I can use that word. And therefore, within our value chain of bean, we are trying to reduce the movement of agricultural material as much as possible, from the farmer to at least one handler before it gets to our tables. And so that in itself is what we are trying to do, and there are some commodities going around, for example, from our processors, where they're making various products, such as the noodles, which are more nutritious, biscuits that are more nutritious, pre-cooked beans that are more, that would require less time, less fuel. Remember, for example, most of us are saying, oh, I don't have the time to cook beans. We've done that for you through the SMEs. And therefore, now you're able to access beans that are pre-cooked. Within 15 minutes, it's on your table, and you can enjoy your bean stew with some good rice from Bear, if you're coming from Tanzania here. So basically, that is what we are saying, that bean is beautiful, bean is diverse, and we can actually integrate it into the formal sector and ensure that our farmers are getting a better return. Thank you.
Thank you. And in the region, we're seeing quite a number of different approaches from government to encourage biofortified beans. Some are incorporating policy within school feeding programs, some within wider biofortified policies as well. Can you give any examples, Jane, of where you're seeing government really get behind biofortified beans and what that can achieve?
Yes, again, this is really critical because markets or businesses are supported by policies. And one of the things that will actually scale up, the adoption of biofortified beans is actually to have good policies in place, especially policies that drive, markets, access to seeds, and even the consumption, either in institutions. So we have just begun a program which is geared towards the school feeding program. And one of the things that we have done is to be able to investigate, whether there are actually favorable policies that would support, institutional, like school feeding programs. And the data we have found is very, very encouraging because actually having done this like now in 3 countries, we know that the governments do have, let me say, structure or a policy which actually does support school feeding. Countries like Malawi have actually even narrowed down into even zeroing down to specifying that the schools are encouraged, to feed children of biofortified beans. However, we know that there are major gaps in implementation and, following through that processes. For example, even having a real, updated strategy, which captures, we are talking here about markets for seed and seed for markets and how to scale up, how to control that quality and ensure that the gains that we claim, are also found in the schools. And so we have done some analysis of the things that need to be improved. What we know is that although the governments actually do specify that there is good, they have overarching policies on school feeding and nutrition, in some cases, the implementation or the procedures to operate that so that it supports biofortified crops is not up to date. And so there's a lot of work that is needed in terms of creating awareness, making sure that our stakeholders, including even the schools, do understand what is the value, of bringing in this biofortified beans into their diet. Because you see, there's also a lot of misunderstanding into what is actually the real difference, between biofortified beans and the normal beans. And unless that is clarified, we know, for example, even of all the total bean seed which is produced, actually only 1%. This is of bean. If you take all the bean seed which is produced in the African countries, only 1% is of biofortified beans. So what does this mean? It means that actually there needs to be some drive, towards supporting, the increased seed, increased markets, and opening up, the business for biofortified crops. So we do have actually a preliminary analysis which we are just finalizing, which is like a strategy on biofortified beans. And this will cover, what those critical models. So one of the best models that we have is which we have even found is working in 3 countries, in Kenya, Tanzania, and Malawi, is where the governments have actually made a policy, that the school feedings, the school children or the suppliers need to access biofortified beans. And we are very happy that the governments are actually supporting this program. In Kenya, I know the government has already made a declaration that we need to source more biofortified beans, for schools. And these are some of the positive things that we are finding on the ground. So I think it's good for the progress and for the health of the school children.
Thank you, Jane. I'm conscious of the time, so I wonder, I can open it up to the audience if anyone has any questions, because we would like you all to have the opportunity to ask.
Good evening. My name is Ford from Tanzania. I've see there is the policy going on in Tanzania or Malawi. The among awareness for the kids on the school program, just is a program for them to eat or inclusivity to educate them about what beans is because what I've come across, it is, I'm coming from the milk processing plant, and we have done on the school milk programs and nutrition side. I see there is a lot of education on talking more about feeding them than educating them why we feed them. That is number one. But number two is sustainability. Which way it is to educate the government on priority, because normally we say no funds, but I think the issue it is priority. How on the side of the sustainability when it's come on awareness for such product? Thank you.
Okay, I will just speak a bit about the government part, and then Penina can talk about actually what they are doing on the ground, to make sure that there is access of high iron beans in schools. So we are working together with the government because this is really key. Otherwise, it would be of no effect, if we did it and the government doesn't own it in the end. And so the views of our stakeholders, the views of the governments are actually very, very, very important. And so as we move into upscaling, adoption and consumption of biofortified beans, we have been consulting very much with the governments and the stakeholders actually, who have given us and who have actually participated in enriching, the process. Because what we are saying that is in the end, this program is for the country to benefit the schools, to benefit the farmers, to increase the incomes of the farmers, to improve the systems, particularly seed system, market system, because in the end, if there's no market for your beans, then the program will not be sustainable. And so working with the local entrepreneurs, seed companies, processors, the off-takers who are processing, the products like the ones you see, means that, it will be a country-owned process. And obviously, if farmers know there is a market, there will be also a market for the seeds. And so everyone benefits. And if the policy for which we are working together with the government is good and favorable, and then the community and the whole population benefits. So even the strategy that we are having for biofortified beans, which we are developing, we are working together with the government. So it is a It's a government-owned process. Yes. So I think we really would want this project to be sustainable, in the end.
Just to add, regarding whether we are just feeding them, I think we are moving an integrated project whereby we are also including demonstration plots in the farm, in the schools, where the children themselves can see the crop on the ground, and they are able to relate with the crop when it finally comes to the school meals. In addition to that, in some of the schools, they are using our chambers for their K clubs, for training of their children, and actually doing their own production in the schools. So that's part of the second question around sustainability. That some of the schools have farms, and they are now taking it up upon themselves to utilize the capital they have for school feeding instead of purchasing to do their own production. That's also going to contribute towards sustainability. In addition to that, there's a lot of parents that pay school fees through supply of grains to the schools. This we are seeing across the continent. And so we are encouraging them as much as possible to deliver the high iron beans, for example, which is high value. And so fewer kilograms would meet the school fees of their children. So again, if the schools are getting grain from the farmers through the homegrown school feeding policy, which is actually a continental policy, where as much as possible schools are being encouraged to feed children from locally grown produce. So that again points towards sustainability of what has started in the 3 countries that Jane mentioned. And so we hope it's a good combo where you have a policy that is directing head teachers to pick up biofortified crops. We are having farmers producing the crops, and we are having parents actually supplying these commodities to offset school fees and other dues. So in a way, even after the exit of the project, then we leave a system that can be self-regulating. Finally, I just want to also share around farmers, this being a staple crop for most of the countries. And therefore, when we come in with the biofortified varieties, we are not adding any more work to the farmers. The only thing we are adding is more benefits. Because remember, biofortified crops are coming with nutrition. They are contributing to livelihoods in the sense that they are creating incomes at the farm level. We are also contributing to gender issues in the sense that they are faster maturing, and therefore they are leaving the farmer with more time to engage in other productive activities. And especially the women who are the peasant farmers engaging in bean farming, they have more time to take care of themselves and other activities. And finally, it's a climate smart value chain in the sense that I've just talked about the short maturity, and therefore the farmer is able to juggle between the varieties that we have released and decide in the event that the rain season is short, or the rain is lower than expected, which variety can I pick up? They have the options, even within the biofortified varieties. In addition to that, these varieties, they have a tendency to close the canopy very quickly, and the farmer does not have to continue doing tillage all the time. So a couple of other benefits are coming along with these biofortified crops and helping the farmer actually to cope with challenges that are very dear to them, especially the peasant farmers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Noella Ojara. I'm from Uganda. I'm actually a bean farmer, but also a processor, and I process iron-rich beans. I would like to hear your comments on food safety, especially for the agro-processors. You have shown us about 3 of the products, and as a consumer who is conscious, I have looked through the nutritional profile. I've also noticed that some of the products don't have the standard. Our countries all have quality standard bodies. So, and those are all issues of food safety, especially in processing. You're looking at beans, and it's a good thing. I also encourage and promote bean growing. My products have been certified actually to a point of being taken as a food supplement now by our National Drug Authority. So as you are looking at the policy issues, food safety is very key for processed products, and taking it a notch higher so that you don't mention just zinc and iron. There has to be fact. And the Ministry of Health in our countries are the perfect people to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let me just say something and then you will say. And thank you very much for that question. Actually, we do recognize and realize that's a very important and key issue, especially when it goes to processing. And it's not just about beans alone. It's actually any food product. And that's why we are saying that we need to really strengthen the policy. Because even though we are looking at the supply chain, you know, we are looking at the seed system, supply, making sure and ensuring that the seed that is applied is of high quality. Yes, the farmer will plant, but in the end, when it comes to processing, you see like this type where we are having here, some of these products which we are showing, I think the pre-cooked beans have gone through the certification process. I think there's one product they are testing. And in Uganda, of course, you know, like the Uganda Private Sector Federation, I think it's very key in these areas. The standards are very, very important. And there is none of these processes will be bypassed. And so for purposes of, you know, our display and the products which are coming up, you may see one here. I think there's one that Smart Logistics showed, which is in the process of certification. But we do recognize that food trade, food safety is really key. I mean, that's one very, very important thing that we have to work with the policymakers. But the main drive right now is to make sure that the seed supply is sufficient, we have the market for it, and obviously we incorporate all these other stakeholders.
Just a small addition to that is that as much as possible, we try to link our SMEs with service providers, even including the universities, to be able to help with things like analysis, graduate students sent to the facilities to be able to support the SMEs with the certification and food safety issues. So it's a combination of disciplines that actually get us to this kind of products that we are displaying today. And thanks so much for bringing this up. It is one of the things that is very key for us to be able to pull production from the farmers. Thank you.
I think we have one more question, and then we'll wrap up.
All right, thank you. My name is Abraham. I'm from Tanzania. From working with ASAS, I've been able to deal with school milk programs. So one of the things I think I want to ask is, one, on the packaging, because the younger kids in school need different nutrition sizes from the older kids. So how do you go about that to make sure that, okay, we are feeding these kids, but the younger ones are getting the right amount of nutrition, the older ones are getting more, or something like that? And number two is on monitoring and evaluation, specifically on, okay, we've been doing this program, we started and this was the nutrition status in this area, and how are you measuring continuously to make sure that while you're doing this feeding programs, the nutritional value increases? Thank you.
Penina, can you comment on that?
No worries, I can. Thank you for the question. For the portion size for the young and on the older children, basically it's more to do with including the tummy. The tummies of the small children are very small, and so their ingestion will be very little. So when we're doing the products, for example, we set the goal for the nutrients that we want, because we know the consumption of the children. For example, when it's at complementary feeding, we work with something like 250 ml per feeding. And so when we are trying to get to the target nutrients, we have that in mind, that assuming a child eats their maximum, which is 250 ml, how much of iron required for that day will that child have received? So again, just as I have mentioned, these SMEs work with the support of the universities and other organizations to be able to put these scientific concepts into their processing. So that's happening. So even when you see some of these commodities, by the time we are saying a single serving meets 50% of your daily iron needs, it means this has not come from the SME. Most likely they have received the support from a more technical institution. So we are taking care of that, Abraham, and thank you for that. And so when it comes to the school feeding program, this is tailor-made by the government, because most of the time they provide the capitation for school feeding. and they will say how much they are giving per child. And so we normally use a serving of 40 grams per child, for example. And so we know how much goes into that, and we are able to say for that child we have contributed a certain percentage of the iron. Of course, we are not assuming that the only source of iron will be the beans. They are likely to get some meat, they are likely to get some milk, they are likely to get any other commodity throughout the day. So we are making a contribution, but a contribution which is very essential because this is a staple crop which they're likely to eat each and every day. Yeah. I think that's basically all.
Yes, and just to comment on, the MRD, I think you have rightly broached it because, I mean, in the end, we have to measure, what is the actual availability of that iron. Eh? It's one thing to eat it, to consume it, but it's another thing for it to be available in the body. And so these are some of the metrics that will have to be tracked.
Thank you, and thank you. You have one more question. This is good. We started with 2 in the audience, so we're happy with all the questions.
Well, just I want to know, for example, in milk, the people with the problem of lactose tolerance. What about the beans for the kids? What type of the problem do you face on the school feeding program, or what type of the problems when the kids they have is not good for them to have beans, or you had face challenge? Thank you.
Okay, so what I can say about that is that, obviously genetics come in. So not everyone is friendly with every meal, we get allergies all the time, depending. I can eat something and my colleague here is perfectly normal. They are not affected. The same thing with beans. I was just discussing there and saying, for me, most of the beans actually do give me a lot of gas. But what we know about Biofortified, and not just Biofortified, by the way, there are some beans which don't have any gas, and that's one of the major advantages of Biofortified beans. Some of them, like Nyota, doesn't have gas. We have the tari beans, and but we are not denying the fact that there are some children who are allergic, they cannot consume the beans. So that variability, we are cognizant of it. And there are other alternatives, even of legumes. But we know, that's a reality. So I basically agree that we can't have a blanket recommendation. Eh? Yeah.
So thank you. Thank you, Jane. Thank you, Penina, for joining me on the stage, and thank you for everyone attending.